Hello and welcome to another Pauper video. I'm kalikaiz and today we're going to be talking about the Magic Online trophies. So these are all the decks that have gone 5-0 in a Pauper league and managed to beat 5 opponents on the way there. So this is going to be a metagame summary talking about basically the winner's metagame, what decks are doing the best and how that works. Before we get into it, remember that this video is brought to us by cardmarket.com. You can check out cardmarket.com, which is the largest seller of Magic the Gathering cards in Europe, and build a battle box, maybe pick one of the sweet decks from this video. If you want to check out any sideboarding information, sideboard guides that I've created, check out Patreon, which is patreon.com/kalikaiz. And there's also Pondering Pauper for deep dives into the Pauper format, and that's a podcast that I've been doing. All this stuff is linked in the description below. Plus, make sure to like and subscribe. That way you get more of these videos coming right to you. And leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about Pauper and the metagame as it is. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the big winners and losers. So the main situation in the format now is that Boros Synth is at 12. It's basically the biggest part of the metagame is Boros Synth here. Let's just pop this out. So Boros Synth is 12.7% of the format. Blue X Fae is 12.7% of the format. Basically every single Boros Synth deck, and we had 15 trophies, had all the glitters in them. There was one pilot only, Lindoso01, who has not put all the glitters in their deck yet. So mostly just a glitters deck now at this point. And what that does is it allows it to go playing the mid-range plan, plus have an oops, I killed you button. And whether or not that's good for the format, that's up to the format panel to decide. But you could leave me a comment, let me know what you think about that. It's kind of interesting. So combining Boros Synth, we also have Glitter's Affinity at 5.1%. So that's a little over, probably over 15% of the metagame that's just these glitters decks. And then from there we have Blue X Fae, which is interesting because now we're back to the metagame where we have Boros versus fairies. So it's kind of like that mid-range format, except for Boros now has a kill you button. Maybe Boros would be still competitive without all the glitters, but I'm not really sure. And then behind fairies is it Terror, and then Golgari Gardens, mono red behind that, Jeskai Ephemerate, and then the Glitters Affinity I was talking about. Then it's just spattering of different decks right here. Sorry about that weird sound. So Boros Synth and Blue X Fae both had 15 trophies. Is it Terror with 14? To be honest, most of it was Spock Vita Locut. And then Golgari Gardens at 11, Mono Red at 10. And then as it goes down from there. So one of the decks that hasn't been performing that much lately is Kawgates. Kawgates relies on Basilisk Gate to power up their dinky creatures and slam in. Just had 3 trophies. It seemed it has seen some good placements in challenges, but it's kind of fallen off. It mostly has to do with whether or not Strands is good. And Kawgates is probably not good at fighting against something like Boros Synth, where it's all flyers as well. And then we're not seeing really anybody put glitters into Orzhov Blade. The Tithing Blade effect is just too strong to be also watering it down with other things. All right, so on day 1, what happened? We had 5 Is It Terror trophies, and none of them were actually Spock Vita Loca, but 5 people trophied with Is It Terror on the 31st. Then the second most trophied was Boros Synth, just 2, and one of for Blue X Fae, Golgari Gardens, Mono Red, Jeskai Ephemerate, Glitter's Affinity, Dimir Control, Rakdos Madness, Elves, and Mardu Metalcraft, where Mardu Metalcraft is really this Mardu synthesizer list that Lost and Katu has been playing. I have a video of that coming out soon. And then what I thought was cool was this Mono Red synthesizer deck, which is basically Goblin Burn. They're playing 3 Goblin Grenade, no Lightning Bolts, and they're just going all in on Goblin Matron, Namesticker, Goblin Attack You. But what's interesting is they have Goblin Sledder to keep the Namesticker Goblin alive by making it slightly bigger. So it's really sort of more like a Goblin Storm deck. Very interesting. They've got Sandstone Needle, Ichor Wellspring. I don't really know what's doing here, but an Ichor Wellspring. And then Sparksmith in the sideboard is kind of cool. Plus Lightning Bolt in the sideboard and a Commodore if you want to rush the Monarch against a slow decks. So I thought that was a pretty sweet list from day one. On day two, we've got nothing really standing out with 2 trophies for Borosynth Terror, or Is a Terror, Golgari Gardens, Glitter's Affinity, Walls, and Grixis Control. The Grixis Control was the same pilot. 2 blue X Fae, 1 mono red. I'm sorry, 1 Fae, 1 mono red, 1 Kage, and 1 Turbo Fog. So this is the Boros Synthesizer deck by Lindoso01. And this is a very more mid-range plan. So he's got 4 Galvanic Blast, 4 Lightning Bolt, 4 Limbus, 4 Synthesizer, but also spare supplies here, which is enters the battlefield, tap, draw a card, 2 tap, sacrifice, draw a card. So it's it's basically card advantage. And they're only playing 4 Thraben Inspectors instead of an 8 Inspector package. We've got Bajuka Bog to pick up. So this is pretty much a classic older style list. We saw a Jeskai Affinity here, where they're playing the Walker 735 special with the 4 Galvanic Blast, 4 Rens Resolve, and you're seeing Ardent Recruit, trimming on Ornithopter and Thraben Inspectors. So nothing else really to note in that day. Going to the second, we have 3 Boros Synthesizers, so we're seeing it start to get a little bit more popular there, I guess. 2 Is a Terror, 2 Mono Red, 2 Glitter Affinity. And I think this is the day where the Glitter's Affinity were actually Boros. Then we see Blue Fae, Golgari Gardens, Dimir Control, Rakdos Madness Burn, Mono Blue Fae, Dimir Terror, Goblin Combo, a Teamer Ponza, I believe. Or it could be the... This is actually... well, we'll see. This is not Teamer Ponza. This is a green-black Ponza, which is Golgari. But this deck is playing the 4 Exhume package with 4 Troll, 4 Generosent, so you can juke somebody with Exhume, but also you're also juking them with Thermokarst and Acid Moss and slamming in Avenging Hunter, Annoyed Altasaur. Pretty classic Ponza shell, but they are trading on having the boarding party for the Exhume package. Then we also see a Mono Green Infect and a Teamer Serpentine Curve. So this was a pretty spicy day, actually. So let's go down the spicy lists. We see a Dredge from Galio GIO, where they're not playing the Mire Triton and instead playing Rebel Belt Maverick, going up on lands from the 12 land list. And they're playing pretty stock otherwise with Rotten Reunion over the other 1 mana spell. Guigabo, they are playing Mono Red Goblins. So this Mono Red Goblins is really wild. They have 4 Goblin Grenade, 4 Lightning Bolt, 4 Fire Blast, and a bunch of 1-drops, and then Mog War Marshal. So they're just playing kind of old school Goblins deck. But I don't really know what Gingerbread is doing in here. I guess it's just to like poke in for the initiative and stuff. We see a Mono Green Infect. I don't see anything too crazy, but they're playing Embiggen, which is a relatively new card. It says target non-Brushwag creature gets +1/+1 for each super type, card type, and subtype. And you know, I don't actually even know how much this gives to the creature, but I think it's +4. I don't think it's +5. Pretty wild. Try to explain that in your Pauper tournament. There's a burn deck here that I thought was interesting. They're on basically 4 of everything with 17 lands. They decided to go from maybe 3 to 2 Seal of Fires to fit a Relic of Progenitus in the main deck, where they have 3 Relic of Progenitus as well in the sideboard. That way they can have 4 totally in the 75. And they're playing Smelt, which is destroy target artifact for 1 mana, and Smash to Smithereens for 3. So they have 5 ways to destroy artifacts, and then 4 in the festivities. So they're trimming on Pyroblast. I guess they don't feel like blue is that big of a deal. And then here's the mid-range Boros Synth again. So here's Boros Synthesizer, so-called synthesizer by Nuberola, which this is actually just a Boros affinity, and they're on Ornithopter, Frogmite, Mirror Enforcer, Gingerbrute, Raven Inspector. So they have the Glinhawk and synthesizer package. No Thoughtcast instead of playing Ren's Resolve. So they're really kind of just streamlining this so that they can have fast creatures, but maybe going down a little bit on the amount of card draw. They ended up double trophying with that on that day, and also trophying with the Golgari Panza. Very impressive. So Serpentine Curve, this deck is just really wild. So first of all, this person is in the Familiars Discord if you want to chat with them. That's also linked in the comments or in the description. And the point of this deck is to eventually fling a giant snake at your opponent. So you have one fling and Serpentine Curve, plus Campfire to recycle your deck. You got 4 Deduce, a couple of 3 Counterspell, 3 Wildfire. Oh man, this deck is definitely wild. It seems like it was a blast to play, and they said that they worked on it for a while before getting a trophy. So moving to the third, we have 3 as the top trophies: Borosynth, Blue Fae, and Jeskai Ephemerate. 2 trophies for Golgari Gardens, and 1 for Izzet Terror, Mono Red, Glitter Affinity, Dimir Control, Elves, Familiars, White Weenie, Orzhov Blade, Gruul Panza, and Cycle Storm. So this was the day that it was actually a Teamer Panza. We see Alak Hai playing Blue-White Affinity, splashing black for Cast Down, and Arms of Hadar in the sideboard. They're playing a Mistvault Bridge and a Goldmire Bridge in order to do that splash, and making sure that they have the 4 Springleaf Drum. So that's an interesting option. I guess they felt like they had enough to splash black. Then here is an example of the Boros Synthesizer deck playing all that glitters. This is playing 4 each of Galvanic Blast and Lightning Bolt, and then they have Barb Batterfist. I just feel like maybe the Barb Batterfist is not that good, and then people should go on more leaning this way, like the Gingerbrutes, and then maybe like Candy Trail or something. We'll see how that evolves over time. One thing I thought was interesting here was this Elves, where they're playing 4 Winding Way, 4 Lead the Stampede, 3 Distant Melody. It's interesting to see. So they have a huge amount of card draw. Then here's a Cycle Storm from Paulo Cabral, which is one of the older style lists, not playing the Artifact Land and Deadly Dispute package. But Cycle Storm's always a favorite from my end. Another Boros Synthesizer, playing a little bit leaner, 4/4 on the Thraben and Novice Inspectors, 21 lands, so not quite as greedy. On the fourth, nothing super stands out. We have 2 of Fae, Izzet Terror, and Mono Red. 1 ofs for Borosynth, Golgari Gardens, Rakdos Madness, Grixis Control, and White Weenie, but no spice on this day. Womp womp. Sorry, everybody. On the 5th, we see 3 trophies for Blue Fae, Golgari Gardens, 2 trophies for Izzet Terror, Mono Red, and Jeskai, and 1 trophy for Synth, Dimir Control, Cogate, Elves, Familiars, Metalcraft, and Turbo Emblem. So that's the Turbo Initiative deck. Here is a pretty stock Gardens deck, but I wanted to point out that they're on the 4 Pyroblast plan, trying to splash off of this 1 Geothermal Bog. You can also make Pyroblast mana off your Deadly Disputes, but they're able to get the Geothermal Bog off the Troll of Khazad-dûm. So that's a way for them to fight blue in the sideboard. This Turbo Initiative deck is a little bit different from the last one we saw. They're playing 4 Commodore, 4 Hunter, 4 Goliath Paladin, but they're also on 4 Boarding Party. And this is more of a way to push the damage. But one thing I like seeing here is that instead of 4 Bolt, 4 Braid, they're on 4 Bolt and 3 Fiery Cannonade, where Fiery Cannonade can really shore up the red matchup, I think. So that's something interesting where they may have done it that way. They have a Braid in the sideboard, Wow, they're on Fire Cannonade plus Breath Weapon, so they're definitely playing a lot of sweepers. They have 2 Abrade and 3 Cast into the Fire, so it's a powerful deck for sure. This Familiars deck by Cranial95, they copy this exactly from the Pauper Get-In winning list, so it's cool to see that this is succeeding here as well. And they're not playing any preordains, but instead playing 2 Impulse and 2 Merchant Scrolls. So the Merchant Scroll can search your library for a blue instant card, reveal it, and put it in your hand. Getting something like Lose Focus, Counterspell, Prohibit, Snap, Meaning of Minds, and Flicker. And then they also have in the sideboard one of Aethertoe, which is a white-blue hybrid that has Conspire to put target attacking or blocking creature on top of its owner's library. So when I talked to Bragiotto, they said that Aethertoe is really cool because when you Conspire it doubles the spell, it copies it, and that gets around a interaction from your opponent trying to counter your Aethertoe. And they said Aethertoe is also very good versus something like Guardian of the Guild Pact. They've got the sideboard Archaeomancer, since there's only 2 in the main deck, and Azure Fleet Admiral in the sideboard. That's to fight, I guess, Monarch decks, but decks that don't have interaction. And then this Elves by Raqueta, who is a Brazilian player. They're playing only 4 Winding Way as their draw spell, 4 Vines of Vastwood in the main deck, and a 1 of Fling. With this Poison Dart Frog, gaining Death Touch, it's all sorts of all over the place. But they also like to splash in this Avenging Hunter, so I'm interested to see how they were able to just get their deck going, but maybe they don't care that much about chaining and care more about just putting stuff onto the table. On the 6th, which was the last day, still no spice again, I'm sorry. But we did have 4 Fairies trophies, so that's a lot. And then 3 Borosynth. 2 Walls, really cool to see both Mojo and Apis72 doing well with Walls. And we have 1 Golgari Gardens, a Mono Red, a Coggates, Mono Blue Fae, Dimir Terror, and Bogles. So we saw actually 2 Mono Blue Fae this week, but there's not too much crazy going on. It's just like your classic Mono Blue Fae. And this person's playing 1 of Spire Golem. So I guess that can be an okay thing to do if you're on, wanting to play more of a tempo strategy. I think probably you want to lean into Mono Blue Terror instead at that point. So that's all the trophies for the week. Once again, the most played or most trophy deck was Borosynth and then Blue X Fae. Both of them at only 12.7% of the trophy metagame, the winner's metagame. But we're seeing a lot of them in challenges and in events and stuff, so we'll see how it all plays out. Hopefully you enjoyed watching this video. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.